Hi, Ken Mulla here at the Bassmaster RedFish Cup, and we're talking about the tides we're going to have for the tournament. Tomorrow morning it's going to be high, and we're making a pretty long run, probably about an hour-long run. We get the tides already going to be falling. We're hoping to catch some tailing fish. It's been windy the days of pre-fishing, and we have incoming tide, and we haven't been able to see them, but we have a couple flats where we think that we can catch these fish tailing in the morning, and then from there we move on. We have spots to fish at between a 5 and a 4, a 3 and a 2, and the tide is all the way out in 0. We have 4 different spots, and we have a timetable set in the boat that would be a certain spot at a certain time. As long as no one else is sitting there, I think it'll be a good game plan, and I think we'll do well.
Ryan Rickard from Tampa, Florida, and here at the Bassmaster RedFish Cup Championship here out of Georgetown, South Carolina. A place that's it's a really cool place, got a really cool vibe, but a lot different than what we're used to fishing in our Florida area or Texas or Louisiana, where we mostly fish our tour. And what I mean by that mostly is the tidal fluctuation here. The tidal fluctuation is extreme from what we're used to. We're used to fishing 6 inches worth of tidal movement up to maybe 3 feet. This particular area here, you're having 7-foot tidal swings. And what I mean by that is you may be in an area that's a flat or a creek on a high tide that's at 7 foot. And within 4 or 5 hours, it'll be down to a 0, and the water you were floating on will be completely dry land. The challenge this week has been that our practice days have been on the complete opposite tide of what we will have on our tournament days. So we've been practicing on a low incoming tide, and then our fishing days for the tournament, we're going to be fishing a high tide outgoing. Well, the major part with that is not only do you need to get out of an area quick enough to make sure you don't get stuck, but also it makes the fish move a whole lot more and transition out of areas to where they typically don't do that in Florida, Louisiana, or Texas quite as much, because they don't have to move out of those tidal regions. So you're not necessarily able to specifically fish a zone versus like back at home. You're fishing more of a zone for a short time and then having to move with the fish as they go. So it's going to be interesting this week. It's been a very tough practice for us, but you know what? You never know what'll happen because we're fishing a completely opposite tide than we practice on. So it'll be a great time. I'm glad to be here and fishing against a bunch of really quality anglers.
Hey guys, I'm Tony B.A.S.S. fishing over here, fishing the Bassmaster RedFish Cup here in South Carolina, Georgetown. A little quick rundown on what we're going to try to do with the tide changes here. The tide changes are extremely big, 6 feet. 4 or 5 hours it goes up 6 feet, 4 or 5 hours it goes down 6 feet. So basically our plan for the week is when it comes up, we're going to move up with the water, try to get into the really small pockets that hold fish in really high water. These fish move up into the grass, move up into hot water, looking for crabs and snails and stuff like that. Then if the tide falls out, they move back down and fall into the cuts and ditches and into the oyster beds and stuff like that. So we'll go up with the water, try to find them shallow up there, and as the water comes down, we'll follow them down and try to pick them off as they drop out of these drains and stuff into the areas that hold water all the time when the tide's at its lowest point.
Hi guys, Drew Cook here, Winyah Bay for the Bassmaster RedFish Tournament. Here on the East Coast, you have a huge tide, and we dealt with this a little bit whenever we were here bass fishing, but this tide's 5 foot, and we have working on a full moon, so it's even more going back and forth. So what it is like you'll be there and you'll be looking down at the grass, and then within 4 hours you're down here looking up at the grass. And what it does is if you try to get back in somewhere, like you can get back in on high tide, but you can't get out if the tide falls out. So there's a lot of strategy that's going into this, because if you can't get out, then you can't get away in. And the fish, as soon as it turns to get high, they're following it right all the way to far back. So you want to get all the way back there, but you've got to be conscious of when you have to leave, because it drops like 4 inches every 10 minutes. So that's the deal. Tide is very fluctuant here and probably going to burn some people this week.